Hello and welcome everyone. I am Dr. Usman. Today I am talking about a topic that is very important and crucial, particularly when you plan something and when you are focusing the success of any organization, institution, or your firm. So the my today talk is about the strategy and organization failure. And the main bit of this one is we well know that what is the strategic change and how that change make us more flexible, and then the flexibility make us win. So we often imagine strategy as a roadmap to success, but history shows us that many great organizations failed not because they had no strategy, but because they clung too tightly to the wrong one, or they were so proud on their strategy. So rigid strategies, overconfidence in past success, ignoring environmental change create blind spots for us. Flexible strategies where organization adopt, pivot, and reconfigure resources so it bring them to resilience and their long-term survival. And one more thing, if we imagine, so just a small step can spark the waves of change. And today we will explore that how the change make us enable to counter the organization or strategy failure. And that's why we are exploring today how strategy can fail and why flexibility matters and what managers can learn from companies, the giant companies previously failed, and we will see those examples, and we will learn the key theme that how important is the adaptability, and that adaptability basically is the lifeline of any strategy. So going to further in detail, we must know the objectives of today's talk. So today we are learning that what are the potential causes of strategy failure, and to know that what are the drivers of organization failure, and how the managers can avoid failure and what are those guidelines for them. And also we will see the drawing lesson at the end of the session. So think of this lesson as both a warning and a guidebook. We will study failure not to criticize but to understand how to build better strategies in the future. The most important bit is that why we are studying failure today. So most of the strategy textbook and literature are highly concerned over the performance and avenues of the success. But really, when we are talking to failure, so at that point, the research is a bit now and silent on the causes of failure. So companies fail. Failure doesn't mean that it is necessarily the death of a company, but it could be one of the critical factors we should know that it will harm our reputation and our success. So the paradox is this, that every strategy that made someone successful can later become the chain that drag them down. So failure is not inevitable, but failing to adapt is definitely uh, causes of failure. And to be proactive sort of behavior with behavior, we should like be address the strategy failure with a concept of strategic change, because when you are more adaptable, you are more flexible, so definitely you will have a culture of strategic change in your firm, in your organization, in your institution. So that strategic change make you able to counter the and the mechanism of strategic change make you counter the failure. So proceeding further, we have to go through some truth behind the whole scene. And we must accept that good times don't last forever because the competitive advantages erode quickly. And that's known as the strategic drift. And also, we should know that our competitors have strategies too, and probably their strategies could be much better than what we have in hand. So then in that case, the competitors could be move faster than what we think. And example in that is the Netflix, like they killed Blockbuster in less than a decade. And also the success brings proud and the managers get blinded by success, known as myopia. And success uh, make you easily blame the environment rather than focusing your own weaknesses. So you have to keep yourself under continuous audit and examination that and assessing your strategy to understand that how it is performing and how it will perform in the future. And that concept of doing so is known as the strategic fit theory. And that strategic fit theory, if you adopt, so you will keep yourself under accountability continuously, and you will see that what you have adopted and device for your success, whether it is hit by external factors and how you are countering those external and internal disruptions happen to that particular strategy. So strategy failure, if we define, so we would say that first to know about the strategy. So every strategy and every you the phenomena you make, it has certain goals and objectives. Once you see your objectives and goals far behind and you make devise your line up action for that, so that is the particular strategy that how you will meet those objectives and goals. And it is evident that all strategies are expected to lead to advantages or at least position up superior priorities. So Hughes and his colleagues describe very easily, if we know the strategy purpose, so we could say what will be the failure in that case if it is not fulfilling the purpose we what we want. So according to Higgs, like the substandard performance relative to the major competitors and not fulfilling the objectives and performance is known as the strategy failure. And strategy failure is basically relative. If competitors pivot to new technologies or business models while you just cling to the old, so no doubt you fail. Not because you had no strategy, you have your strategy, but because you had the wrong one and you are cling with your past. So the course of strategy failure, if you see the pattern, so the pattern is looking its performance or time relation. And initially, at first, the adherence when you adopt and you devise your strategy drives high efficiency and it improves your performance initially. But over time, rigidity set in, organization ignores signals of disruption and change, and then the performance plateaus emerge and you decline over a period of time. But you can stop that declination just if you are more flexible and you reverse it by revisiting your strategy and incorporating the new directions what will stop your failure. So in that case, rather than the declination, you will reemerge. So rising, you see the graphs like rising at first, but then dropping as competitors innovates and you are not. So the more rigid the organization, the steeper the fall. Flexible firms, however, bend the curve back upward by configuring their strategy before it is too late. So lacking of flexibility and high rigidity cause you fail and high adherence. So that's the reason. And the model of strategy failure, you see that basically there are two paths uh, that emerge failure. One is the high adherence. So high adherence In that case, the leaders hold on to a single strategy and they are blinded by past success and they are proud of that. So they become so rigid, their practices become so rigid. So they dismiss any new opportunities which comes through challenges and they rely on symbolic data to justify the old choices. The other one is the low adherence. So it happens when organizations are weakly structured, lacking resources or processes to adapt, and even when change is recognized, they cannot act. In both cases, adaptability is missing. Rigidity or organizational weaknesses both prevent the timely pivot needed to survive. So the question arises that what are the warning signs? So the warning sign for us is the managerial rigidity. We have to overcome managerial rigidity. So the leaders that stay too long and they over champion one strategy, so then it convert to managerial rigidity. So we have to counter this sort of behavioral practices in organization and in our strict strategy practicing. So in that case, we could manage it. The other one is the organizational rigidity. So that comes through centralized power and bureaucratic structure in your firm or institutions. So if happens so definitely it will like build problems for you. So in that case, you can overcome if you uh, rethink your working structure, your approach to problem solvings, and overall mechanisms of working towards your objectives. So in that case, you can reach to the benchmark level of strategy adherence rather than you will work at two extremes, either at high adherence or low adherence. And another area could be cultural rigidity, where you are ignoring external signals, dismissing new technologies, or assuming customers don't want any change. So, together, these rigidities prevent organization from embracing flexibility, the most important ingredient needed for survival. So, examining the strategy failure, and we want to explore the factors of failure, but in all like these assessing these factors, it is very difficult to monitor and to observe and bring to accountability because it every organization and every institute is different from another, so you cannot generalize certain factors. These are very tailored to from environment to environment, and that's why generically we would say that any circumstances that lead to success can also lead to strategy failure. One of the best example is the planning is cause you success, but it could be uh, like liability if you are inflexible in turbulent environment. And if you are too proud of your success and repeated success, so then that proudness brings you blind towards and stop you learning new things. So if you and that makes your future failure likely. So if you overcome like this sort of proudness in past and your clingness to your strategies, so it convert like it promote learning culture. So the learning culture also like staff failures. So that's another area which cause failure. And once you are championing any strategy, so it bind you to a strategic status quo. And that strategic status quo results in resistance to change. And when you are like prone to resistance to change, then you mostly rely on certain particular resources and you become rigid towards those resources and you rely on that. And usually those resources are known as the strategic resources. Well, Practically, it shouldn't be. You should think about the alternate resources as well. And all these, when combined, so the flexibility requires leaders to see strength as temporary advantage, not permanent guarantee. And that's why you have to change your leadership habits. Ultimately, when you move and your strategy is failing, so and your strategy is not countering the triggers, external triggers and challenges of internal warnings, so then it leads to organization failure. And you can see like how the curve is emerged from like performance and time relation. And you see that this green arrow is representing strategy failure is happening and towards the end point, and at the end point that cause you organization fail. So here the focus shifts from a strategy failing to the firm failing. And early on, small declines feel fixable. So leaders double down, optimize, cut costs, squeeze assets. So initially they could like overcome the external and internal triggers of failure. But as you reach to the green arrows, so at that phase the danger zone starts and it signals very clearly, and the rigidity prevents it. You can prevent here, and it could be very pivot, and you can reverse the things and it will change your direction to upward. But if declines once it completes and it reach to the timeline, so the capacity to change collapse and your cash dries up. The talent leave your organization and your institutions. Stakeholder lose trust. At that point, as the red note says, like firms are unable to change strategy sufficiently to prevent organizational death. So our key takeaway from this one is your best shot is before the sleep part. Build options, test pivots, relocate early, and avoid failure. So organization failure is particularly happening if you are lacking the underlying problems addressing mechanisms that leads organization failure. So if you don't have any such type of mechanism inside your culture and inside your practices, so then no doubt it will ultimately lead you to organization failure. The other one is the lacking of problem sensing. So this ability is a preemptive action. So you should be very like preemptive in case of problem sensing. So if you have a strategy, and these are the sub strategies which avoid the your main objective oriented strategy fail. So if you have a sub strategy of problem sensing abilities inside your managerial mindset or your practices, so it will not allow your organization fail. Another one is the you will see the spiral action, and one you see the like failure induce more failure, and it is like more strategies decision weakens. You see that weakens your resources. So it's like a downward spiral for you, and that weaknesses cause more bad choices once it start happening, and the competitors working against you, they will definitely advance and your customer leaves. So the spiral accelerates until it's collapse. Again, at that point you need a sub strategy, a small strategy, that how you are going to stop the spiral and how early manager intervene to reverse this spiral. So flexibility and openness to change are the only brakes on this process. And that's the counter strategies you have to be incorporate in your overall larger picture of objective oriented strategy. And the Other one is the glorification of your success. Once you glorify yourself, so it we talk about that learning deficiencies restricts. So this you have a mechanism and a sub strategy that how you improve the learning abilities of your team and your organization structure and practices. So if you have that, so but if you are lacking learning deficiencies, so your organization no doubt fail. So let's see and take some example and think about it. So the about the Kodak example, it was a global leader in film photography in 20th century. And ironically, this company invented the first digital camera in 1975. But the worst thing is that what happened to this organization that it failed, and it's failed like just because of the strategy. And its strategy was they really focused on film based strategy. They believed that they are brand and the film will sales do sales forever, and the printing ecosystem will always dominate in market, and whatever existing business model they have, so it will need no change. And that's why the disruptive innovations stopped in their business model. And that was the reason that they stuck to high adherence and the strategic myopia of management, and their overall organization practices towards the digital photography uh, failed them. And the lesson was that technological leadership today requires ecosystem thinking. So if they are not ecosystem driven, so rigidity in focusing only on hardware destroyed on only the rigidity on their old business models caused them fail. And that was the only reason that protecting the old at the cost of embracing the new technologies lead them failure. So flexibility, what we would call in 1975 for the Kodak, uh, made them the leader in digital photography instead of a cautionary tale. Another example is the Nokia. They dominated mobile phone with 40% global share in 2007. They were famous for their durability and reliable hardware. Their strategy focused on hardware excellence but ignored the software revolution. They stuck with Symbian operating system too long while Apple and Google built ecosystem. So Nokia was rigid, slow to pivot to user experience and app-driven models. So the lesson from this Nokia failure is that technological leadership today requires an ecosystem thinking. Rigidity in focusing only on hardware destroyed Nokia dominance. Another one is the Thomas Cook, which collapsed around 2019. The Thomas Cook survived nearly 2 centuries but collapsed in 2019. Their strategy was tight, and I remember like their offices around in so many countries. So their strategy was tied to high street agencies while the market shifted online. Heavy debt from acquisitions left them inflexible and unable to invest in digital transformation. Online platforms and low cost airline eroded their customer base. And that's why what lesson we learned that failure to embrace digital flexibility while carrying the burden of rigid debt structure led their collapse. So all these three are the um, like the evidence and very um, accurate examples where we could see that how your strategy once lead you to the top level can cause you fail. Coming to the point where we would can talk that how to stop these sort of failures, and it's only through the culture of strategic change. It's possible through only uh, a change mechanisms and flexibility and adaptability if you incorporate in your team thinking, in their habits and in their practices. So the first thing would be like managers can avoid these failure traps if they, it's not only the managers, the whole team. So if they stay open and adaptable, they see challenges as opportunities. They must be habits to embrace flexibility, allow multiple options and scenarios. And it should be a continuous practice. It's the leader's responsibility to give tasks to their teams and bring ideas in a year once or two times. So it will keep them evolving. Allow them act decisively. Delay only makes failure spiral faster. Reaffirm goals, but reset methods should be there. So it's if you see the future, but seeing the future is good, but you should know that how to reset the methods to reach to the future. So the vision may stay, but the path must evolve. So that is the beauty. Flexibility is not indecision. It is the discipline of evolving strategies as environment change ever. Our summary and key takeaways are that today we have went through certain sort of theory where we learned that what is a strategy failure and how the strategy failure could trigger the organization failure and how it happened and how we could stop it and how important it is and how the different examples we went through that they could lead to failures. We also learned the managerial, we also learned the examples that how managerial organizational structure and external environments, internal environments can cause your strategy and organization fail. So also, we went through like these uh, quintessential examples of failure of the organizations and learned that what could be the possible options for us to welcome the internal and external challenges as opportunity. So at the end, I would wrap up that today's like if we see both sides of strategy, so its power to create success and its danger when it's create rigidity. So the future belongs to those organizations that combine vision with adaptability. Strategy is not a strategic plan. It is living process of continuous alignment with the environment. And the power of change starts with us. First step, no matter how small, but ultimately it will lead us to success and proud over our competitors and in market. So my call of action is please like, subscribe and stay connected. Like this content and subscribe for more and similar insights and future contacts. You can access me through my email if you need any comments or want to be part of this journey of change. So I would definitely ask future managers and leaders, keep yourself accountable through audit your strategies well often. Keep yourself flexible and bring flexibility into your culture and in your control. Stay humble with your success. Flexibility wins, rigidity fails. The choice ultimately is yours. And thank you guys. And I look forward to your thoughts and reflections. Please leave your comments.